So let's go through a few notes here. What we're talking about today is we're going to be going through the extra parts of wages. This is where it's getting into more like specific types of jobs now. Now we're getting to specific types. So today's stuff that we're talking about, we're in the, what are we in, the 4th and 5th section now? Section 1.4 and 1.5 now? Because we did the 3rd section the other day. That was based on overtime. But now we're going into the 4th and 5th sections, which is tips and piecework. And I'll explain these concepts here in a minute. We still got a couple more things to do in this chapter. We're kind of rapidly approaching the end of the chapter. Chapter 1 is really short compared to like all the other ones. There's not a lot of material in chapter 1. It's kind of a nice intro. Nice and slow, kind of builds you up. It's more practical types of problems you guys are used to. So we'll probably look at a test probably sometime next week. Good morning.
Good morning.
Afternoon. My birthday? 7/11/02.
Thank you.
All right. Okay. Odd. Okay. All right. Anyway, for tips and piecework, let's talk about tips. So let's say you're a waiter or waitress, or you're in a job field where there's a tip jar that is provided to you. So I'll just kind of provide a drawing here. Here's my little tip jar. There you go. There's my little tip jar. It's tips.
That's a phone cup.
Okay, a little cup. All right, so yeah, a little foam cup. All right, so you got your tips in there, and the idea is that on taxes, tips are not required up to a certain point. So like when it's reached to a certain level of tips, let's say where it's supplementing your income, then you have to start reporting on taxes. But it's like up to a certain point, it's kind of below table cash. You wouldn't have to report it unless it becomes a necessity where that's what you survive on, and you have to report it as a tax. So tips can be anything. It could be, if you're a waiter or waitress, you are getting tips for the service you're providing at your table or whatever your countertop, if that's where you're at. That's the idea. And so it could be a percent of the bill. That's a typical way of doing tips. It could be the percent of the total bill. Percentage of total bill. That's a typical way of doing tips. So like for instance, you always hear people go, are you gonna leave a 10% tip, 15% tip, 20% tip? Like what's your style? Okay, what do you need? I have a rule of thumb that if I'm going to a restaurant, I'm going to leave a 20% tip. It's just kind of an automatic. I'm gonna leave a 20% tip. Okay, that's just what my parents always ingrained. And if I can't leave a 20% tip, I shouldn't be eating there in the first place. Like, because the person that's providing me the service is cleaning up after me. They're washing my dishes for me. They're bringing the food right directly to me. It's kind of worth it to me. So I just kind of have that mentality. I'm going to leave a 20% tip. Some people get so pent up on like, oh, did they give me a soda every 10 seconds? I'm not that person. I'm going to enjoy my time eating. I'm going to enjoy the company I'm with. The waiter or waitress is going to be in the background noise unless there's a major issue. They're being rude. And then I'm going to go talk to somebody about that. That's not something that's necessarily required. But tip on the other hand, it's something that like workers rely on. It's like a lot of people don't realize this. Like tips, like in a restaurant, that is your wages. It's like they get paid bare minimum per hour, and the tip is what they're actually basing their salary on. And a lot of people don't know that. They're just like, oh, I'm going to leave a $1 tip. They just busted their butt for 20, 30, 40 minutes, and you give them $1 for that hour of their time. That's how you have to think of it. So, but let's talk about a 20% tip. And I'm going to show you the shortcuts, the easy ways to do it. So let's say the total bill that came out for your food. I'll just kind of make up a number. Let's say you went to the OP in Clear Lake, and your total bill at the OP was $25. Let's say that's, and I could put change on there, but let's just say it was $25, whatever your food was. The idea is that what a 20% tip is you're taking your total bill and you're going to change this 20% into a decimal. How you change percentages? The decimal's in the back, and you always move it over 2 spots. It's always 2 spots. So this decimal is going to go to the front, and it's going to become 0.20. no matter what the percent is, it has to move twice. The decimal has to move 2 spots forward. And that number, that 0.20, is what I'm going to multiply on the 25. That will tell me what I need to leave for a tip. Now, there is a shortcut for doing this. There's a common sense way of thinking about this. I'll show you that here in a minute. But this is the real way of doing it, right? So, and again, I'm making up the 20%. You can leave whatever tip you want. It doesn't have to be 20. It can be, you know, whatever you feel like is necessary for that bill. Okay, so 20% times 25. I believe it's $5 on a calculator. 0.20 times 25. $5 even. Okay, and that's the tip I would leave. I would leave a 5 on the table, or maybe I'd put it in the little tab if I'm using a credit card. I'd add that as a tip, and then I have to add that on. So my total, so after I leave my tip, I have to take the $25 and add the $5 that I was leaving on the table. So I paid a total of $30 for the bill. Okay, so that's what I have to mark down, and maybe I'm using that in, you know, in some form of in my little check tab, or if I'm keeping a checkbook or anything like that. I'm keeping track of how much did I spend, that type of thing. Maybe you're keeping receipts for, you know, for other purposes. Maybe it's for work, and so they'll pay you back. So but that's a big deal, right? 20%. The shortcut for that, for a 20% tip, it's the easiest thing in the world. You just double what the bill was, and you move the decimal over. That's the shortcut. So if you took 25 and you took it times 2, what would you get? 50, and you move the decimal over. That's just how it works. So 50, if I move the decimal over 1 spot, it'd be 5. Okay, that'd be the idea. That's how you can do it quickly in your head. So you're like, okay, what would the tip be? Well, double it, double whatever your bill is, and then just move the decimal over 1 spot. And that'd be kind of what it is. So, for instance, let's do another one. So let's say my bill turned out to be, you know, let's say it was $13.50 for your bill. You're going to Buffalo Wild Wings, and you're getting some, you know, food over there, and you're going to leave a 20% tip again. 20% tip. Well, the shortcut is I double $13.50. So if I double that, that's 27, and then I move the decimal over. So my tip, so because if I double $13.50, it would become 27 even, and then I move the decimal over. So my tip should be 270. Now, that's just doing it in my head. If you can't do it in your head, you're fine. You know, you have a cell phone on you. Take $13.50 and take it times 0.20, right? You have to move the decimal over 2 spots for 20. And that should, I think it should spit out 270 if you had a calculator. So again, check it, see if it does. No, I'm estimating that in my head. I'm trying to show you that you can do it quickly without the need of a calculator. 1350 times 0.2. Was it $2.70? $2.70. So that's the shortcut. I like to show you a shortcut every now and then. Some people will just get so caught up like, oh, what's the tip? I don't know. Some restaurants, I know there's, I think it was Ruby Tuesdays in Mason when it was there. They used to have all the tips printed on your actual receipt, and you could choose which one you wanted, which one you could afford. So, or which one you thought was the correct amount. So they had, you know, 10%, 15%, 20%, 25. They kind of gave you, and they told you what the tips were, so you didn't have to do any math in your head. They kind of made it easier for you. It's a clever way to do it. There's some restaurants you go in, if you're in a very large party, they've already added the tip for you. It's called gratuity. That's something you should check on your tab. Was gratuity already added? I'm gonna put that word. Gratuity. Gratuity is that they've already added the tip. They didn't ask you. They added 20% tip. Because sometimes it's required if you have a party of a certain size. But they're just going to add it automatically because it's going to take a lot of their time. You know, you're taking tables away from other customers because maybe you have a party of 10 or 11 in there. So that's something to think about. A lot of restaurants do that automatically. Do you need to leave 20%? No. That's just my rule. That's what I think of. That's kind of a minimum that I would do unless there's a major issue that I'm talking to the manager. I'd probably still leave a 20% tip because I know what they make per hour. All right, questions at all about tips? Does extra cash on top of the bill to pay for their wages. Because what is minimum wage anymore? It's $7.25. Is that what you guys said? $7.25. When I was in school, it was significantly less than that, but waiters and waitresses get about half of that per hour. So they get, $3, $4 an hour, and then the tips are what they live on. So that's something to think about. That's like the mentality I have when I go into a restaurant. It's like, I probably should leave a tip because they're getting $3 an hour. They're not making anything to be here. So that's just something I think about. Now, the next one, piecework. This is one of my last things today, and then I'll let you kind of work today on your homework on the stuff that I sent yesterday. Piecework is when you get paid for making a certain number of items in a factory. That's really what it comes down to. So if you're in a factory, and so we're talking about piecework, it's pay per item produced. Pay per item, manufactured or produced, or I'll just put produced. I think that's the way the book says it. I think that's the wording they used. But it's the items that they made. So maybe you're in a factory. I used to work a factory job when I was in college. I came back every summer. I worked at Larson Manufacturing here in Clear Lake, made storm doors, and it just paid my tuition for at least a semester. And so we weren't paid, piecework. I wish we were, but we weren't. I could definitely see there's parts of that job that could have been glass work and other things. But there's some jobs that do that. Maybe your job is that you get paid where you deliver newspapers. So here's the news, right? You have a newspaper, but you get paid for slotting in the advertisements in the inside, like the Target ad, the Best Buy ad. You put in all those ads on Sundays. Some people get paid per item that they get put in there. How many newspapers did they get completed by the end of the hour? And then you get paid a few cents, a few dollars per item, and then you're out the door, right? So maybe you're getting paid, $2 an item. Well, if you're getting paid $2 per item, and you produced, let's say you produced 50 items that day. Maybe that was what you're working on. And you worked on, you've got 50 items done. You multiply the two together, and so you're getting paid $100. Pretty sweet. Another job I'm thinking of off the top of my head that does have a piecework type is a semi-truck driver. If you're into professional driving, that's what they call it, you're a semi-truck driver. They get paid per mile. It's the same idea, right? You're getting paid per mile of travel. And so it's really small. It's a very small number what they get paid per mile, like 19 cents a mile or something like that. But when you're putting in a couple thousand miles a week, that could be some good pay, right? My father did that for many, many years, made some really good money doing that. So let's give you an example here. So let's say you're going and you're going to be delivering 1,200 miles across the U.S., right? You're going to go out west, deliver something out in, Colorado, Nevada area. So 1,200 miles, and you're getting paid 19 cents per mile. Maybe that's what your pay is. Well, it's considered a piecework job. You're getting paid per item produced, per mile produced. So you multiply the two together. So 19 cents, so 0.19 times 1,200, I'm getting paid $228. You're thinking, well, hey, a lot. Yeah, but what if you did that in, a 2-day period? That's pretty good money if you're doing that at, every couple days. You're gonna make some pretty good money. Let's say that's a 2-day pay. You're making, $114 a day. That ain't bad. It's more than some jobs would pay per day. It just depends. So that's just something to think about. So there's different types of jobs, how they get paid. These are the things I want you to think about a little bit. Okay? Do we have the basic understanding of what we're talking about now? Okay, that's it for today. You can work on the stuff I signed yesterday, that was the time card and the overtime pay, the story prompts that I signed. That stuff, that page 4 and page 11 is due tomorrow, okay? So keep in mind, I'll turn off the camera here, you guys can work, you have like 20 minutes.